Welcome to the Jazz Notes Podcast. I'm Ben Anderson, joined today by David James. And DJ, can we announce what our plan is?
Absolutely.
Is it official?
Yeah, and if we change it, we'll just announce that.
We are going to start, not this week, but probably next week, recording a second Jazz Notes podcast every week. So you'll now be getting 2 episodes a week instead of just one on Monday. Monday will still be Chandler and I. Every Thursday, it will be DJ and I. David James and
the
I.
2 of us, yes.
A legend.
I'm looking forward to this. Don't say that. I know, like, you were a little kid and you watched me on TV, and that makes me feel really old and kind of freaks me out, but it's the truth, and it cracks you up. Nothing makes you happier. We've golfed before, and this guy is just like, yeah, I remember being 9 years old and sitting at my parents and let me stay up late. I'm just, oh, my God.
But we haven't quite figured out the format of what our Thursday show is going to be. I don't know if it's going to have a mailbag. I like the mailbag on Mondays. There's a lot of questions. I worry it'll get watered down if we do it twice a week. But we will have a format.
Maybe we'll generate more questions.
Maybe more questions, or maybe guests or something.
The cool guests would be good. I think and maybe if we have guests, then the questions to the guests will be different and we'll generate more. We'll figure it out as we go along. It's a podcast. We will make it up as we go along, and it will get better and better. And
we will be focused on the Utah Jazz. It is going to remain the Jazz Notes podcast.
Are we going to talk a lot of NBA or no?
Yeah, I would like to.
Okay.
If it's pertinent, if it makes sense. I'm not going to make you watch games every night, but we'll talk whatever seems
I don't
to track.
think that our audience is into that at that level, but I do think they are into, at least I hope they are, because I am. They're into the bigger storylines with teams. We don't need to break down lineups and substitution patterns and key plays and all that, but just kind of the arc of who a team is and where they are headed.
Absolutely.
And I also think that loops back to the Jazz, is like who's headed down, and maybe they'll be unloading some salaries and talent. We're in an era where that doesn't happen. It's kind of freaking me out, quite frankly.
The last week for the Utah Jazz, and we'll continue to focus on the games individually. Jazz are 1-3. They beat the Phoenix Suns in overtime. They were up 20 points in that fourth quarter, blew it, ended up winning in overtime, 138-134. They've lost all 3 straight. That includes a 136-134 loss to Portland, which was actually not that close, but the Jazz put the clamps on in the fourth quarter and came back. I think Portland took their foot off the pedal. And then more concerning, I think more pertinent now, back-to-back pretty lopsided losses in games that were over in the first quarter, on the road to the Phoenix Suns and on the road to the Charlotte Hornets. And outside of the win over the Los Angeles Clippers, the Jazz have not played a team, David, I don't think that's going to be going to the playoffs, and they are 1-4 in their last 5 games.
I would agree with that. In their last 5 games, I do not believe any of those teams will be seen in the postseason. There might, underline might, be an argument for Sacramento in a play-in game, but I don't think that will happen.
Or Portland.
And I don't count the play-in games as playoffs.
I agree with you. Are you a top 6 team or are you not? And
exactly.
I don't think any of those teams are.
Right.
With the exception, again, of the opening team they played, and that's the Los Angeles Clippers, and they may not even make it to the play-in tournament. All right, quick trend. Since beating the Clippers on opening night, over the last 5 games, the Jazz, what's been the big talking point from Will Hardy? The defense?
Yeah.
The Jazz have the 5th worst offense in the NBA since outside of opening night. They actually have the 7th worst defense. So they've been a worse offensive team than they have defensively. So
Will's not wrong, but there's more hideousness he's not discussing.
What I'm curious about is what's wrong with this Utah Jazz team? And are they just so young that they're terrible? Or are they being asked to do something that they're not capable of doing, and Will Hardy has to adjust? Because I look at what the team is doing, and I think Keontae's playing great, and I think Lowry's playing
great.
He's playing really well. He certainly played the best basketball of his career.
I would say he's playing much better.
Yes, and Lowry's playing very well. I don't know if he's playing great either, because he's
super curious. But with Lowry, I think he is who he is, and he's a veteran, and so it's different. And maybe the best thing about being a veteran is you get to the point where you realize what you're good at and what you're not, and you focus on doing what you're good at.
Sure.
And I don't think Keontae's there yet. I do think there are steps being made in all seriousness as far as maturity, feel for the game, realizing what he needs to do.
The entire defensive end of the floor.
That doesn't mean he's anywhere near good enough in those areas just because he's better.
Sure.
There was a moment, and I can't remember if it was Charlotte or Phoenix because they kind of run together, because depressingly they were really the same game. The starters came out and were who they were for those 5, 6, 7 minutes, and then Will went to the bench, and everything completely collapsed. It was like watching a 5-foot wave hit a sandcastle.
Which makes me think a couple of things. A, the Jazz probably just don't have enough good players on their roster.
That I think we both agree on.
And second of all, that the lineups are wrong right now. He's got to figure out what his lineups are, and that will change tonight with the other big piece of news is that Isaiah Collier's back in the lineup.
He get Collier back. Now, this is the NBA. You never get to have everybody for very long, if at all. And certainly, Kessler's a big loss because they don't have another Walker Kessler. The argument for the people who think he should be traded to help in the rebuild is, really, what would you do? You would immediately try to find another 7-footer who moved reasonably well, who had a really big wingspan, even for a 7-foot guy.
Yeah, and block shots, and can protect the rim a
little bit. So you'd be trying to find another Walker Kessler. They clearly missed him. The whole, the part that he's focused on about the drives to the basket, well, that just gets worse when Kessler's off the floor, which in the case of Charlotte was 48 minutes because he flew back to Utah. I still see Keontae do stuff, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Sure.
What are you doing, and why are you doing that? I guess I admire the courage and the bravery and the desire to be great, but I just don't think driving the lane right at a 7-footer is his best move.
I recognize that.
Then it got swatted.
He is also only shooting 25% from 3. So right now his 3-point shot is not falling. So he does need to go to the rim because he's getting to the foul line, which has been the biggest difference for him. And the thing about Keontae that he's doing well that nobody else on the Jazz is, and why I do think they will be so happy to have Isaiah Collier back, which I wasn't sure was going to be the case, is he can get into the paint. And the Jazz don't have a single other player on the roster with a willingness to get into the paint outside of Keontae and now Isaiah, and they needed it. And you saw it last night.
Do you mean get into the paint off the dribble?
Off the dribble.
As a guard initiating the offense?
Yes.
Because I have liked the way they've started to run stuff from Markin into the paint. They realize either he gets a smaller defender or they make a smaller defender switch onto him, and then he gets in the paint and gets a gimme. And in Charlotte, when the 3 wasn't dropping, they went to that a couple times, and it seemed to get things going.
And he's doing it more than he ever has before, and it's a plus.
Yep.
But he still generally needs to be set up, whether that's a cut or, they have to create the mismatch first. This is not Keontae dribbles the ball up the floor or Isaiah dribbles the ball up the floor, and then whoever's guarding him, I don't care. I can get past you. And if I get into the paint, it goes to the old Quinn Snyder thing of starting the blender, and then it works. And that's, where the Jazz have been so vulnerable is on offense, they can't do it, and on defense, they can't stop it. So they've got to figure out a way to fix those issues, and that's one of the reasons why, again, they are outside of the opening night of the season, bottom 5 in offense and bottom 7 in defense.
So I think back to your earlier point about what's really wrong with the team, the offense and defense are connected. We got leg bones connected to the knee bone time, right? And so coaches usually want to fix both of those by starting with the defense. When you defend better, you're not pulling the ball out of the hoop as much. And when they miss the threes, a long rebound off a 3 might get you out on a break and get the offense going and feel a little bit. So I get there's some of that happening. And honestly, defense is easier to coach. Offense, this is true in multiple sports. It's certainly true in football as well as basketball. You tend to need everyone to do everything right, and one person messes up, the whole thing falls apart. Whereas defensively, if one person does something extraordinary, the other 4 maybe get to fail. But as long as that one person reads the pass and gets in the lane or picks the dribble, picks someone, clean when they're dribbling, you're good to go.
I have been surprised when it comes to Will Hardy's lineups that he has gone mostly veteran in the starters and mostly young in the second unit. And it's not a surprise that the second unit has been terrible. And as soon as the starters come off the floor, the Jazz get washed over the final 4 or 5 minutes of the first quarter, and then the game is over, and that's what happened. That's what's happened in really 3 straight games, but they did come back against Cleveland or against Portland. But the last 2 games, that has been the case, and I think a lot of people are pointing at, Bryce Sensabaugh's doing this, or Ace Bailey's doing this, and they're not good enough. It's like, well, yeah, what if you put one of them in the spot of Svi Mikhailiuk, and they weren't going to be a natural -19 or -20 in the plus-minus in their first 5 minutes on the floor? It's like, yeah, that's why teams stagger lineups, and I'm a little surprised we haven't seen that more, other than maybe Will Hardy wants to make the young guys, quote-unquote, earn it.
What do you need me for this podcast for anyway, Ben?
Well,
I think that's it.
Is that a good thing? I can understand the logic.
Coaching 101 says it's a good thing. If it's not working, then perhaps it's not a good thing.
And he changed. He did move Flip out of the starting lineup, and he went to he went to Taylor Hendricks yesterday. I just wonder
if
that's
a young guy for a young guy.
But that's a young guy for a young guy.
Right.
And even you're technically kind of getting a more veteran guy. Now, Flip has played more games than...
Right, you got a third-year guy versus a second-year guy.
But it's a third-year guy and a second-year.
You got a guy who missed a year.
If you want to have more balance in that second unit, I mean, the problem is you can't move Keontae there, and you're not going to move Lowry there, and you can't move Walker there, and you've already moved Flip. I mean, it really does only leave one spot, and that's
So
the
does
two
this
guard.
go back to the roster's that bad?
Well, I do think the roster is that bad. I think it was by design. That way you can still just let Will go out and coach and yell at his players and try and win games and not have any chance of winning games, even if you're trying to. But if you're going to find more balance there, and it's why I think actually we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast, Chandler and I, you start Svi because it's really easy to bench Svi, right?
Yeah.
You can start Svi because you know you're going to replace him at some point with Ace Bailey, and when things go wrong, it's really easy to make that switch. I'm just curious how quickly that switch comes, if it does.
I think there's the earn it thing. I think the other reason to put the young guys in the bench is they're going against a lower level of competition, and it's easier for them to have success and shine. Now, eventually, presumably, assuming they didn't whiff on all the draft picks, someone does have that success and shines, and then it's easier to know who to switch. So you do make them earn it, but in the process, you're also making it easier for them to earn it. And in previous times, I don't think Jerry Sloan made a lot of mistakes, but every once in a while he did, and he was usually really good at admitting it. And now I'm blanking on the kid's name. Oh, Deshaun Stevenson. He left Deshaun Stevenson on somebody, and it might have been Vince Carter. And I think the player went for 47 points. And it broke Deshaun for 2 months. It just wrecked him, right? Because in his life, he'd never, ever had someone take it to him on a basketball court like that. And it really made him question everything. And Jerry's like, I blew it. I was trying to let him play through it. And it's like, hey, here's a lesson. This is the bar. This is where it sets. Now, Jerry is an older guy and you shake it off, let it go. And Deshaun couldn't because he wasn't an older guy and he didn't know that. Just turn the page on to the next night. And so you do have to be careful, and you can say, hey, I want my guys to be mentally tougher. And, well, everybody's in Kobe.
Yeah, right.
Kobe
for
can
sure.
shoot air balls, and other guys aren't wired that way. So that's where you have to figure out each player and figure out how much do I have to pat him on the back, how much do I have to kick him in the shins, and, to what degree can I let them succeed or fail, and it's not a big deal, and to what degree do I really have to manage that?
And Will is a good coach, and Will does understand players very well, and I think he will find that out. And I think it's important to remember, as I am sounding the panic alarm here, that we are 6 games into the season, and it's early, and it's going to be a long season with a lot of losses, and Will is not trying to rush out all of his solutions in the first 2 weeks of the season.
That's all true. I think the reason we've seen him in the postgame the way he's been after Phoenix and Charlotte is he can't work with those games. Like the other games, there's successes and there's failures. And he knows, he's, in a way, how old is he now?
36, 37.
36, 37, but he's like 36 or 37 going on 46 or 47. You know what I mean? And so he knows he's going to have to bring him along, and it's baby steps. You really see that in a postseason comment he made when I think it was Kessler's rookie year, and he said Kessler wants to work on 10 different things. It's like, no, pick 1 or 2.
Yeah.
You're not. Larry Bird didn't make 6 things better. Magic Johnson didn't, right?
Right.
Michael Jordan didn't. LeBron didn't. Steph Curry didn't. So if every generational star for the last 40 years didn't do it, you're not going to either. So Will has that kind of, but I think these last 2 games, Will's looked at it like, well, I can't fix this.
Yeah.
I can't fix lack of effort, lack of caring, lack of awareness. Like, do you know what the whole league thinks of you if you let an average player on a bad team beat you with their number 1 option and their strength?
Yeah, right. They get to what they want. The only thing they do well, Con Knipple right now, a rookie, only does one thing really well.
I want to catch and shoot 3-pointers in the corner.
How is he getting catch and shoot
How
threes
did he get
every
a catch
time?
and shoot 3-pointer in 8 minutes into the game? And all I can do is drive the hoop with my right hand, or all I can do is drive the hoop with my left hand. And clearly, Will was talking about specific guys on opposing teams. In the scouting report, they literally said, okay, player 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you go through it. This guy, going to catch the ball, going to go left.
Yep.
But that happens over and over.
It does. It's got to be maddening.
It happens at the high level. Carlos Boozer went left his whole career. And I used to sit next to Pace Mannion doing the pre, half, and post for 5 years. Pace he'd catch the ball, he'd face the free throw line, and Pace would be sitting next to him and go, he's going left. And then Boozer would beat somebody left and score. So at some point as a player, you got to figure, if you want to do this for the next decade, you got to figure this stuff out. Because everybody in every front office is watching every game. They're all waiting for the Jazz to move off these guys and think, I want to give this guy a shot when he doesn't work there.
We do this every week. We preview the upcoming games until we have another podcast. Jazz have 3 more this week until we will talk again next Monday. Jazz are at the Celtics, at the Pistons, at the Timberwolves. Do they win any?
No.
Yeah, I think they close this road trip 0-5.
Well, that was a short segment.
It means they start the season 2-7, and that's about where they were last year. I think that's exactly where they were last year.
And that puts them on track to hold on to their pick,
and
which many people are worried about.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, but people were worried about it early, and we won't have to talk about this all year long. But I think the thing about the pick, I think assuming that they aren't going to be the Phoenix and Charlotte team, another, what do we got, 76 games left? Assuming they're not going to be that team again, the recipe, Frank Layden said a long time ago, win at home, learn to win at home, learn to win on the road, learn to win in the playoffs. And it takes time to do all those things. So when they beat the Clippers at home, it's like, awesome, but what is that? Like when they almost won at Sacramento and then they did win the home, that's when you start to worry. But don't you look at a team right now that's going to win somewhere between 15 and 18 home games?
Probably that. And then 5 or 6 road games.
I was going to say 7.
Yeah.
But okay.
And then you're at 22 wins, which has kind of been the number I've had all year.
Right. That's the 20 to 25 win plan. Now, the other question, is how many teams in the league are going to tank because this draft is so good?
It's going to be, it will happen. The Jazz can do it as well as anybody.
Washington was supposed to be one of those teams. Brooklyn and Utah. Those were the 3 I saw as almost universally, that's the bottom 10% of the league.
Yeah.
So do you have a feel for what New Orleans is going to do?
Well, New Orleans doesn't own their own pick. They traded their pick, unprotected. So they have no reason to tank. They are 0-6.
Let's give them credit for trading 2 picks.
Yeah, right.
What I kind of sort of understand, because when they traded it, Indiana was a week away.
This was the Pacers pick, yeah.
Yeah. The Pacers were a week away from losing their best player to an Achilles.
Yes. And they
so
didn't
that
know.
did change that. But I got to say, trading away 2 first-round picks
that are both going to be in the lottery.
That's a special level of
incompetence. Yeah.
Incompetence.
Well done, Joe Dumars. All right, let's take a break.
So they will win, is what you're saying. New Orleans will go out and win games. They're not motivated to dump.
They're going to fire their coach in the next week, and they'll try and pin it on him and then win games. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we will get to your mailbag questions. Stick around. More Jazz Notes coming up next. Welcome back to the Jazz Notes podcast. Ben Anderson, David James. Again, if you missed the announcement, maybe you're fast forwarding, which you should never do.
Please. Animals.
DJ's going to be joining the podcast every Thursday beginning next week. And that's the plan, and we'll continue to adjust things and figure out what works, but I think that's the plan for right now. Mailbag will not change on Mondays. You can always find me on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, whatever, Ben's Hoops. Read me at KSLSports.com. My DMs are open, or you can look for the prompt every Monday at about 11 o'clock. I send it out asking for your Jazz questions. If you do DM me, I will try to make sure I read them. First, Dan on Twitter says, based on the Tankathon tweet I had, which was the Jazz have the toughest remaining schedule in the NBA. Now we're 6 games in and the Jazz can't play themselves. So their schedule is going to be much tougher than everybody else in the NBA. But they've also already played the Suns twice, who are one of the worst teams in the league, and they don't get to play them again. They played Charlotte, who's going to be awful, and they don't get to play them again, other than once. So do you think the Jazz are walking back what Austin Ainge said and going full tank mode, or will they actually try to play their best players and win games?
I think they're going to play their best players and win games. And I think they're going to end up between 20 and 25 wins. And I think that will be good enough to protect their pick.
I will be curious if they feel confident trying to quote-unquote win games when they know they can't, and if they feel that is more valuable than playing young guys 30 minutes a night. And if at some point you decide, hey, you know what? This is a bottom 5 offense in the NBA. The best thing we can do is figure out if the 6'8" guy who likes to shoot and scored a lot in college and scored a lot in high school can score a lot in the NBA. And yes, that's not the most competitive the Jazz can be, but if Ace Bailey can develop into a star or develop into a scorer, that will be better for us next year and the year after. And look, that's what they've been doing the last 2 and 3 years. It's the exact same thing. But I wonder if at some point they say the shenanigans of trying to win games when you're 2-11 on the season, which is coming.
Yeah.
Who are you lying to at that point? Are you lying to the fans or are you lying to yourself? And what's the best case scenario
then? They may
then?
need to get to a point where they desperately try to win a game because it does beat you down to lose. And there is something about having the winning culture. I know culture is a word that can get overused and thrown out there pretty easily to deflect from answering, real questions. But you just need a little positive feedback every once in a while.
You absolutely do.
And teams need to walk out there and not hope to win, but expect to win. Even if they only expect to win against the bottom 20% of the league, they need to expect. And even if they're wrong, they still need to expect it. So there is value in going for wins. But I think they are going to play young guys, and I think that those two things aren't mutually exclusive. You know, I don't have any idea how quick a learner Ace Bailey is.
Yeah.
There are people who take 2 years to learn a lesson. There are people who take 2 months to learn a lesson. There are people who take 2 weeks to learn a lesson.
Donovan Mitchell took 2 weeks.
So who's to say, right?
Yep.
And I don't know, and that's not putting any value judgment on it, because the truth is, if he's good in 4 years, then it was a great pick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So how fast and you don't control how fast anything happens. You can have an injury. We've already seen that last year, and a guy loses a year, and it just happens. The thing about Ace Bailey is there's so many things to get used to in the NBA, and he is a scorer more than a shooter. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
That may evolve over time, but that's where he is now. And some of the things he does, they just don't work anymore.
Right.
And he's going to have a bunch of shots blocked before he recognizes that.
That's the thing. Do you want that to take 40 games because he's playing 15 minutes a night, or do you want it to take 12 games because he's playing 30 minutes a night?
And see, the thing is, I don't know that he learns that based on the reps and minutes. Some people learn because they're on the court. Some people learn from videos. Some people learn because they're told. Some people, the best ones are, don't learn from your mistakes. Learn from other people's mistakes, right?
Yep.
Some people learn. I think Paul Millsap learned, and it's one of the reasons he progressed so quickly and played so much as a rookie. I think he learned by watching other NBA games. And he was, you could always talk to him about, did you see whatever game last night? And he saw it. He had the league pass, and he went to the best players and the best teams and the best games, and he knew everything. You asked Karl Malone that, they don't know anything. He didn't know anything. He wasn't watching anything.
Yep.
Not in it for watching film, didn't care. So who is Ace?
Yeah.
He had the ball in the paint, and he faked over the left shoulder, and he spun, and he shot spun in the lane, and he got it rejected. Now, in high school, in AAU ball, even in college, he probably just shot that so quick and scored it over people who, A, weren't big enough.
He could have shot it slow. Everyone was too little.
And B, couldn't get off the floor, right?
Yeah.
And now it's the NBA. Well, now, I don't know if he has to get that block 5 times or 10 times. I don't know if they can run it back in a film session before the game in Boston. Ace, this doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
You need something else. Or like when we were talking earlier about Keontae going in and the way you went in, the idea of going to the hoop is great, but you got to go into the guy's body and create the contact. You got to show him the ball, bait it, switch and score. You can't just go in and finger roll it over him. He's going to swat that thing to midcourt every time, and that's a fast break going the other way.
Yep.
So do these guys learn it when it happens? Do they learn it when it happens 10 times? Do they learn it by watching film? Yeah, I don't know.
Jared Crookston on Blue Sky. We've been uncompetitive in games where I thought we'd have a fighting chance at least. Are the bad teams amped up to attack a team they perceive as vulnerable, or are we really missing the maturity needed to play hard in spite of being bad?
Oh, both those things are true.
I think both of them are true.
I think both those things are true.
It doesn't have to be black or white.
I do think that later in the year, when bad teams play, you might see different levels of motivation. But when you're still in the first 10 games of the season, and for some teams, just getting to 500 is a big deal, right? And they're thinking, we got to get this one. I think that's what Charlotte thought. You might find Charlotte drifting mid-season and find it's a different deal. But they were at home, and it's early, and they're still motivated, and they want to go win.
I also don't want to underrate, and I talked about it last week, the Jazz are trying to replace John Collins, Colin Sexton, and Jordan Clarkson, and you don't have to like them as basketball players. But those guys were good for 25 shots a night, and they were good shots because of what you were just talking about with Ace Bailey, who doesn't know where to get his shots off. Jordan Clarkson knows every shot that works and every shot that doesn't. And that doesn't mean everyone goes in or they don't get blocked, but he knows what works more often than not. These guys recognize patterns. Colin Sexton knows how to get shots off. So does John Collins. And now you've got guys in their second and third years playing roles for the first time and real minutes for the first time who are still trying to figure that out.
And in the case of Collins, I would separate him out from the other three. He last year was flirting with 40, 50, 90. Mm-hmm. He wasn't flirting with a good year. He wasn't flirting with a very good year. He was flirting with a great year. They don't have anyone remotely close to it. They got guys going 25, 38, 80 instead of 40, 50, 90.
Again, Keontae George is their second go-to guy behind Lauri Markkanen. He's shooting 41% from the floor and 25% from three.
Neither one of those numbers works.
No, neither one of those is good enough. As good as he has been, those numbers at that point, he's probably not starting anywhere else.
Probably.
Yeah.
And if he is, it's Brooklyn.
And he's the
or
two
DC,
guard.
Right,
and he's the two guard. He's playing off the ball.
Sammy
Paradise.
It still feels a little square peg round hole with him.
Yeah,
he's better.
The shooting has to come along. And if it doesn't, it doesn't matter how good he's become defensively.
Yeah.
That's not going to help. So, yes, teams are attacking a vulnerable team. Also, the Jazz do not have the maturity. It's both of them. Sammy Paradise, I saw the Jazz had something like 5 Sunday home games this year. Is that more to do with the changing demographics in Salt Lake City or trying to accommodate a hockey schedule?
I think both is, again, the correct answer, but I think it's more hockey.
And there's also a third here that I will elaborate on.
So a couple of years ago, there was a Jazz schedule release, and I did not do that story. That story was given to somebody else. And I think the phrase was, there's 3 Sunday games. That's so exciting. And I remember watching that thinking, that's not exciting. There's a portion of the audience that doesn't like that at all. They don't like it at all. But Ryan Smith is doing that because all these rumors about maybe hockey might be coming. It might be coming earlier than any of us know. And then subsequently, the rumors really pick up speed. And we all do know about the rumors. And they were test driving Sunday games because that's the only way to get all the events into the arena. Not just the 2 games, but all the concerts, the ice shows. The ice shows here this week. That's why both teams are on the road. So I think that drives it. Now, to the changing demographics of the market, maybe they're bigger crowds and they can do it more often than they could have done 10, 20, 30 years ago. So there's a little bit of that, but I think it's driven mostly by the demand on the arena.
Also, the NBA doesn't want teams doing as many back-to-backs. And they say, you have to play Sundays.
The NBA doesn't want it. The teams don't want it.
Less travel, fewer back-to-backs.
Yes.
You have to play Sunday. I don't care if you are in a...
They are very aware that the quality of the product suffers and that the customer is noticing the quality of the product suffering. And it leads to more missed games, and everyone's noticing that. So they are definitely trying to minimize those 2 things.
So I just know for a fact, behind the scenes, they said more Sunday games for everybody. I don't care what your previous rule has been.
Well, the other thing is, and that's not so much in this market, but in other markets, there isn't the religious element, but there's the NFL market.
Correct.
And so, but if you look, the Carolina Panthers played and are actually off to a pretty good start, and Charlotte was at home against the Jazz. And you can't watch the NFL game and go to the NBA game.
What has happened to Pistons home games on Sundays? No one goes. Why would nobody goes to Pistons games anyways, but
so
they're certainly not going on a
against
Sunday.
The Lions game, right, yeah.
Nice Joe Green on Blue Sky. Seems to be a big difference between games 1 and 3 versus 4 through 6. Is it just an effort thing or have opposing teams figured something out? That has also happened. Teams have figured something out. Teams looked at how the Jazz were running an offense. It was a little bit different this year. It was a lot more cutting, a lot less pick and roll. And they said, oh, well, okay. We'll just stick with our guys in the corners. And if we don't think you can beat us in the pick and roll, fine. Or we'll just take away what you are doing attacking the rim, and we don't think your shooters can shoot.
You are what your record says you are, but there are wins that are a little fool's gold, and the Jazz will get those later this year. But everybody knows they're tanking. Nobody in the league really takes them seriously. Everybody picked them 14th or 15th in the West, but they get off to a 2-1 start, and now Game 4, Game 5, Game 6, like, hey, look at these 2 games, and they're showing films. Now, pretty soon they won't be showing that, because you're too many games removed and the lineup changes and you got to show, Collar film once he's back in the lineup and all that stuff. But I do think winning 2 out of 3 raised everybody's antenna and everybody's bar. Ron Boone says never, ever underestimate ego in this league. Ever.
Yeah.
The coaches are always telling you, but you're tired and you're playing a lot of games and it's a blur. And he said, the scouting report says one thing and it says the truth. But are players really focused on it? Until they're burned or until their buddies are burned, they don't take it serious. Second time around the league, you see more. And the fact that they went out and beat the Clippers, they went out, okay, right? The Suns are seeing them for a second time. Well, look how different that was versus the first time. They probably didn't take them serious the first time. But we'll get to the point where if they are, 3-25, then everybody will lighten up and not take them serious, and there'll be some fool's gold wins out there, and the Jazz will get teams that are, turning in a D- effort.
Yep, absolutely. Jimbo Slice, how many jerseys does each player have for a game? Like, if they only have 2 and they both get ripped, what would they would they have to wear another player's jersey? So I suspect they all have 2.
I think they have more than that.
1 and a backup. Home games, obviously, they have more than that.
That's it. I was going to say home or road. At home, you probably have the whole supply. How many they take on the road? Yeah, 2 or 3.
Well, the nice thing
is,
they
get blood on them.
Well, how many jerseys do you need? Right? It's not going to happen to 4 guys. So you can probably bring, and I should ask Klauke, I should ask the equipment guy how many they do, but you can just have a blank jersey that is the Jazz
put a name and number
say,
on
well,
it.
there's a medium and there's a Yusuf Nurkic. There's one for the big guys and there's one for everybody else. And sorry, Walt Clayton, you tore your jerseys. You have to wear a jersey that's slightly bigger than what you're used to, but yeah, and we can iron on some numbers or something quickly.
Yeah, I think blood is the single biggest problem with that. And having just done the state volleyball tournament, I can tell you go down and you check and you're like, oh, 2 numbers have changed because it's got blood on the jersey and you can't get it out. And that is like the big, even the tear stretched, as long as it's not stretched all the way out and completely disheveled, I mean, they can stitch it up.
Laura on Twitter, is the Jazz's pick this year 9th or worse? Okay gets it, but it's 1 through 8 before the lottery. Sorry, I'm trying to piece through this text a little bit. Just to lay it out, to answer the question that I think you're asking. It's 1 of 8 post-lottery. So if the Jazz have the 10th best record or 10th worst record in the NBA and are technically outside of the top 8, but win the lottery and move up to the top 4,
they're good to go.
They get it.
If they have the 6th best record and they slide 4 spots to number 10, there will be many tears shed.
They lose it. But again, I don't think that's the Jazz will make sure they're not in a spot where there's any risk of losing.
I meant 6th worst record.
Well, depends on what you're thinking. DJ Main, Utes, or the Jazz, excuse me, he's got Utes in his name. Jazz play 8 home games in November. Over, under, do they win 2? Let's look at the games that they play in November, home games.
Which 8 and are the other teams back-to-back?
Here's the Jazz's home games in November. Minnesota, Indiana, Atlanta, Chicago, OKC, the Lakers, the Kings, the Rockets.
Ooh.
I don't think the Jazz win 2. The most likely games there that they would win would be a 3-game stretch against Indiana, Atlanta, and Chicago, because Indiana is 1-6 on the season, I believe. Atlanta just lost Trae Young for at least a month, so he won't be playing. And then the Chicago Bulls are red hot to start, but do we actually believe that they're going to be able to go on the road and win games? I'm not so sure yet, though. I think the Jazz got swept.
Sacramento game might be winnable.
And you might be able to beat Sacramento. So could you win 2? You could win 2.
Yeah.
Maybe Indiana, maybe...
Well, the other hitch, and we're not there yet, but by Thanksgiving we will be by the end of the month, is you can tell me who the teams are, and you're right about Atlanta. We know they're losing their star. But teams are going to rest guys when they come through town. So you can tell me the Lakers are coming, but are Doncic and LeBron going to play? I mean, right now, I would just guess LeBron isn't.
And you know what?
Now, Austin Reeves might go for 51 and beat him.
Maybe.
But it's hard. It's hard to know. I do think on the whole they win three home games out of 8.
If the Jazz don't have Walker Kessler, I'm not going to pick them to win any games, in all honesty. Until Walker's back in the lineup.
Do you have any idea how long he's out for?
No.
Yeah. It happens on the road.
It was the same injury before the season. I heard he got whacked in his arm pretty good, and they were going to be really cautious with it. And he clearly doesn't feel right. And knowing that he's trying to get $120 million plus this offseason, he's not going to rush himself back. He's going to wait till he's fully healthy, and that's the right move. And that's the risk the Jazz run by not paying him.
Jazz are motivated to let him take a long time because they don't want to win games and they want their lottery pick. And he's motivated not to rush back because he wants a contract.
And he's looked good.
Why would you play when you're 60 or 70% and have bad numbers and then get paid less money?
Yep. So I don't expect to see him a whole lot. And until that's the case, Jazz are not going to be very good. So I would honestly say under 2 if we don't know until Walker.
Is he the second most valuable player on the team? They can't replace Markkanen in scoring, and that's why Markkanen only played 47 games last year.
Yeah.
But then the next thing that's hardest to replace is Kessler's interior defense.
Yes, he's the most unique player they have.
Yeah.
So, yes. No question about it. All right, next question. On Twitter. At what point do we just accept that Ace Bailey is only going to get 20 or so minutes a game? The minute distribution for a lot of young guys has been very frustrating for the early part of the season. Svi's the bane of my Jazz fandom. Ace will go up from 20 minutes. I have zero doubt about that. Ace is not going to be Cody Williams, where I think it's going to be so hard to play and that you can't get him above 20.
It goes up when he plays better?
I don't know if that's the case.
Or it just goes up.
I think it just goes up. Yeah, I just think you got to get him out there. I just think at some point
they give him a month and test and let him adapt, and then at some point put him in the deep end of the pool and see what you got.
Look, the myth of the Jazz are doing their best to win games right now is like, well, Kyle Anderson's not playing.
Yeah.
If they were, Kyle Anderson would be playing because Kyle's better than all these guys.
They're trying to play young guys.
Yeah. Kyle's better than all of these guys right now. Kyle's played in the NBA for a decade. He's a great basketball player. He's not one of the 10 best players on the planet. He's not one of the 100 best players, but he's better than a lot of the guys the Jazz are playing. So
I agree. Co-sign all of that.
They're not actually trying to win at all costs.
They're trying to play young guys.
They are trying to play young guys.
And the fact that Svi is playing might show how frustrated they are with some of the options at that position.
So the numbers, the minutes will come up. And we got another question about Ace that was asked, how much of it is tendonitis? How much of it is the illness? At this point, I don't think it's any of that. Now, had he stayed healthy throughout the preseason, I suspect Ace Bailey would have started the first game. The problem was, and this is exactly what happened with Will Hardy, his first year in the NBA as the Jazz's head coach, was the Jazz won 2 of their first 3 and looked pretty good. how do you bench Svi and send that message to the team that, well, actually, we don't want that? I was kidding about trying to win games, and Svi's playing his butt off in those first 3 games.
Yeah.
What's been easy now and nice if you're Sam Judd is that Svi's been terrible the last 2 games. Svi was awful last night. And he was awful against Portland or against Phoenix. So now that he's not doing anything to say he's helping you win,
you can take him out of the lineup and it doesn't
easier to
raise
make
eyebrows.
that switch. Now, again, you have to look at context. Will just made a big switch by moving Kyle Filipowski to the bench for Taylor Hendricks. I doubt he does it 2 games in a row. So you probably won't see that tonight. And he just moved Yusuf Nurkic into the starting lineup.
Who do you think will start when Svi goes to the bench?
Ace. The Jazz's starting lineup will be...
They might let Svi take the bludgeoning on this road trip and bring Ace back at home.
And some of that is smart because there's dudes every single night in the NBA. The league is too talented right now. So, yes, Ace will, to your Deshaun Stevenson point, Ace could get washed. Not out of the league, but out of all of his confidence early in the season. If he goes up against Jaylen Brown, after he goes up against Brandon Miller, after he goes up against, Tamani Kamara, whoever is starting it for all these teams on the wing.
But to come home and to face Minnesota, Indiana, Atlanta, and Chicago, that stretch, that might be the 4-game stretch to put him in.
Maybe it gets a little bit easier. And then again, all this panic is Will Hardy actually really understanding his team very well and being a good coach and knowing how to handle people.
Yeah.
And I do think Will's a good coach. All right. Over, under, players moved this season. This is from Jazz Time Jones. I'm always going to say over 2.
If anything has surprised me, 2 things that have surprised me in this 3 going on, 4-year rebuild now. Trader Danny didn't make that many trades in the 3 years he was calling the shots. Totally surprised by that. Thought the roster was going to get changed. Cannot believe how long some of the veterans were in town. Can't believe Jordan Clarkson didn't get moved to earlier. So that'd be one thing. And then the other thing is that, and this kind of ties into the first one. It's not totally different. Right now, and Austin said this, I think he said it the morning he was on the radio with us at the
Media Day.
At Media Day. He said, right now, the player's contract is more important in establishing trade value than the player's play. And I think that is it's been a salary cap league for 40 years.
Yep.
But I don't think people ever said that way in public. And the fact that they couldn't trade John Collins and get back real value for him, I mean, I thought they got little back, and then I'm reading the preseason stuff around the NBA and all that, and the sentiment basically was summed up in one story. It said the Jazz are so dead. The Jazz, because they were talking about who's gonna be terrible and who's gonna have the best lottery odds, and they said the Jazz, the Wizards, and the Nets, and said the Jazz are so determined to be in that elite group of horrific teams that they gave these players away.
Yeah,
gave them away.
Yep.
And it goes back to, well, they would have taken some value, but they couldn't get any. That they didn't go out and find a first or second year player who'd struggled a little bit, who they thought could bring along over the course of 2 or 3 years. Wow.
Next question from Jazz Time Jones. What will happen with? I think he's asking Ja. He's got them both capitalized. I don't think he's talking about initials there. What's going to happen with Ja Morant? Ja's going to get traded.
Yes.
Ja has worn out his welcome in Memphis.
Yes, he has. He's gotten into it with the coach. He has been, I think, suspended for 1 game. It seems like there will inevitably another basketball-oriented clash, and I think having a couple of off-court incidences means ownership is going to side with the player. Everybody's fully aware of where this might go wrong in the future, and that would just mean diminished returns in a trade, so trade him sooner, not later, before there's another off-court incident. And I don't know if they ask about the Jazz, but no.
I don't know.
1,000 times so. No.
Honestly, there might have been a world for it 18 months ago when the Jazz were acquiring John Collins, et cetera, and maybe they thought, hey, maybe we can expedite this thing a little bit. That ship has sailed. Ja's gotten worse, as have the Jazz, which has made that marriage even less likely.
Right. And he's a smaller guy, and he's injury prone, and he's had some, and then you add in the off-the-court stuff, and now you add in clashing with the coach, attitude, whatever's going on. Someone will take him because someone will always take somebody. Yeah. But I don't know who it is, and it won't be the Jazz, and it shouldn't be the Jazz.
And honestly, with where Danny Ainge was, and Danny Ainge, I think, was probably a little bit more willing to expedite the process and win a little bit quicker. hence the John Collins trade and some of the things he did. That all got reset when Austin stepped in, and Austin's 44 and sees nothing but runway to rebuild this team. I mean, he's got a long road if he wants it.
The clock has been reset. Everything that went wrong in the last 3 years, I guess if the public assigns that to Ryan Smith, Ryan's just got to wear it.
Yeah.
But Ryan has to assign it all to Danny, and it's now Austin. And despite the last name, this is not a continuation.
The name on the back of the jersey didn't change, but the clock did.
100%. Yeah.
Natals on Twitter. Are we sure that Will is a good coach? It seems a strategy to beat the crap out of the young guys and see who makes it, or it seems that is his strategy. I'm not sure it's really a great strategy. We will see. I don't think the Jazz have drafted all the wrong players. I don't think the reason the Jazz young players are playing poorly right now outside of Keontae George is because they drafted all the wrong players and they just have the wrong guys. I do think Will is trying to impart something really early in the season while he still has their attention, and they're not 3-15 on the year, because at 3-15, guys will check out.
Well, their agents better tell them not to.
Yeah. It's not in your best interest.
Because back to the clock being reset, Austin didn't draft in these guys and doesn't have to get up there and explain why he made a mistake. Because he didn't draft these guys. So it is human nature to get beat down by all the losing. But if I were an agent to any one of these players, I would urge them to resist that urge. I would urge them that no matter how depressed the locker room gets and the bus gets and all that, now that they all have these development coaches, I would be telling any one of these young players, you need to go sit next to your development coach every time you go to the bench. What do you see? And maybe that gets in your head and then you're thinking too much and not playing, but certainly on the plane afterwards. Let's go through it. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? Are there any patterns here? You need to stay dialed in. And you need to make it abundantly clear that you are working really hard to get better. And at some point, you got to see some results where, okay, I'm not making the mistakes I used to make. I'm making new ones. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm making mistakes. The results still look bad, but I'm no longer making those mistakes against reserves. I've done enough that now I'm in the starting lineup. Now that guy's better, and I got a whole new set of problems because I'm going against better players. But you better show progress, because we are getting to the point where whoever is constantly irritating Will, if Austin sees the game the same way, you're gone. Maybe not so much with the rookies, but definitely with the third-year guys and possibly with the second-year guys. They're going to have to make way for more rookies.
Yeah, they've got more guys coming in.
Draft picks coming in.
Yep, they do.
And you don't have that. You got a runway, but you don't have a forever runway here.
All right. I have held up half of the building because they are waiting to talk to you, David James. You're the most important.
I'm loving this, though. Let's go.
You're the most important person
in
this building, certainly on the second floor. So
is the second floor pretty empty right now, except for you and me?
Well, it's still true.
No. Scotty and Hans are down there as we talk. Those two are pretty important. Don't kid yourself.
DJ will be back with us next Thursday.
Yes.
Chandler will be back on Monday as we start rolling out 2 Jazz Notes podcasts.
Will they have won by then, Ben?
No.
No?
No.
Not even a single W? It's going to get depressing.
I think Walker's going to be out for a while, and I don't think the Jazz are going to have him.
This isn't the right year to launch a podcast, but it might be the right year to perfect a podcast. How about that? We can experiment.
Well, I've been doing this for 4 years, so.
Okay, well, I'm new to it, so, figure it out.
We will be back next week. As always, find me on Twitter at Ben's Hoops. DJ, where can people find you on social media?
David DJ James. DJ James, or mornings before 10 a.m. on 97.5.
And I follow him
the KSL Sports Zone
from 10 to noon. Read me as always at KSLSports.com. We'll be back with you next week.